Hello, everyone. My name is Nicolas, and with Sharik, we are going to present to you the counter trade mode. Yeah, let's start. Okay, so in this presentation, we are going to talk about the definition, the involved parties, the types, the industries, the advantages and disadvantages, and some real life examples. Okay, so what is counter trade? Well, basically, counter trade is a reciprocal form of international trade in which goods or services are exchanged for other goods or services rather than for a currency. This type of international trade is more common in developing countries with limited access to foreign exchange or credit facilities. So basically, in any form, counter trade provides a mechanism for countries with limited access to liquid funds to exchange goods and services with other nations. Okay, so which are the both parties? Well, basically, is the exporter and importer. The exporter is the party that sells the goods or the service, and the importer is the part which buys the goods or the services. And in these cases, maybe some governments could intermediate in this process, but these are the two most typical parties involved. Okay, so now let's move on with the types. So the first one is barter. Basically, bartering is the oldest counter trade arrangement. In this, basically, you make a direct exchange of goods and services for other goods and services with an equivalent value. So, for example, if you want a bag of beans or a bag of salt, you can exchange that for a bag of nuts, for example. The next one is the counter purchase. Basically, this is when the exporter sells goods or services to an importer, and also the exporter agrees to purchase other goods from the importer. The next one is an offset. This is more complex. So, basically, in this, for example, the seller assists in marketing products manufactured by the buying country or allows part of the exported products assembly to be carried out by the manufacturers in the buying country. This is more commonly used in the defense and aerospace industry, and this is way the products that are exchanging these are more expensive than normal. The next one is a buyback. Basically, a buyback is when a company or a firm builds a manufacturing plant or a factory, and they agree to take a certain percentage of the plant's revenue or output as a partial payment for the contract. The next one is a compensation trade, and well, this is when let's say, for example, that you are an investor and you are being paid back by the results that the investment that you did provides. So yeah, those are the types of counter trade arrangements.
Now, talking about what kind of industries enter this model, we found that counter trade is more common in those industries where traditional currency based transactions encounter significant barriers or challenges. For example, we have agriculture and food products in regions where there are limited financial resources or currency exchange restrictions. We also have technology and telecommunications, especially in those developing countries where there are restrictions on currency exchange, or also where the government prefer non-monetary transactions. We also have those companies that are involved in energy and natural resources such as oil, gas, and mining. Also, the large infrastructure projects such as construction of roads, bridges, and power plants. And lastly, aerospace and defense. Now, what advantage and disadvantage are in using this entry mode? Well, first we have some advantage that, for example, counter trade can facilitate market entry, also can help mitigate risk associated with currency fluctuations. We also found that engaging in counter trade might provide competitive advantage. Also, that counter trade agreements often involve long-term relationship between these companies and the governments or other organizations that are involved in this. And finally, that counter trade allows companies to diversify their revenue streams by engaging in non traditional forms of trade. Talking about disadvantages, we found that counter trade transactions are often complex and require careful negotiation and management. Also, that determining the value of goods or services exchanged in a counter trade agreement can be subjective and may lead to pricing disputes between, well, the parties involved. And lastly, counter trade ties up capital in non monetary assets, which may limit the liquidity and the financial flexibility. Now, as a real life example, we chose Boeing, the aerospace company. Well, Boeing used counter trade as an entry mode in its deal with India for the sale of C 17 Globemaster III military transport aircraft. As part of this agreement, Boeing fulfilled India's offsets requirements by investing in the country's defense and aerospace industry. These involved commitments such as procuring goods and services from Indian companies and transferring the technology and supporting local manufacturing capabilities. And through these offsets agreements, Boeing secured the sale of the aircraft, also contribute to India's defense industry development and strengthen its relationship with the Indian government.